Anthropocene is thinking globally. It's thinking about the planet as one system and how we affect it. So when we start to think about value in that context, in that system, it has to expand far beyond traditional understandings of value.
We as humans are affecting Earth systems more than all natural systems combined. So that certainly is meaningful as a planetary shift. And how is it that we begin to understand that we are the protagonists in this act of changing the planet into this other epoch, other state?
We always say when you get out to nature and you connect with nature, you want to protect it. Give me an example, like what would really, be something that could touch me?
People talk about virtual reality, and remember, these things are new technologies that are driven by gaming, so they can be a little bit about themselves in some way. So how do you harness that technology to actually do something meaningful and profound? That is something that we've grappled with for years. They call it the empathy tool because it actually does take you to these places. It is visceral in itself. It can be visceral in itself. So in the film work, we've tried to have this kind of constant dialectic of scale and detail. So the big picture that Ed is so good at, and then the little narratives that happen within that big picture that allow you to empathetically connect to what is happening there.
Also, the importance of science. And I'm really happy to see this, that we have artists collaborating with scientists to tell stories. So tell me more about this project.
When we engage with the science, it's as artists who are plumbing our own reaction to what we learn from the scientists and then trying to turn that around and interpret it and capture it in the ways that we know how. So filmmaking, art, stills, artificial reality, virtual reality. We all gravitate in our fields to more experiential versions of what we do. We all believe that this is the important issue of our day. It's actually a crisis. But if you engage in sort of the environmental rant, I think people turn off. But if you open up a place for discourse and a place for understanding through photographs, through things that are open to personal interpretation, hopefully that's a more profound, transformative experience.
So how do we get people really motivated through your work to see what the impacts are now of climate change, but also understand what the longer term impacts, but get motivated to act?
That idea with the still has always been to engage and gross the image. I always want to make big images so they're more immersive when you stand in front of them. And it allows us to see the world sharp across the whole field, and we don't see the world that way through our own eyes. We have this sharp center and it all falls off, but the image allows us to see it in a kind of a vivid way.
There is one other area that we're really focused on. It's the challenge of plastics. Have you done any work on plastics that can help kind of translate this so people can understand we've got to do better?
We don't know where our stuff comes from, so it's that reconnecting us to these places in the world and at these points in the world that somehow really speak to the scale of the effect of what almost 8 billion people on the planet are having on materials and how they recombine themselves in ways we don't expect and now are finding themselves in the oceans.
There is a term called technofossils, which is the human-created objects, persistent human materials, such as concrete, aluminum, and the biggest one, of course, is plastic. And they have estimated, these AWG scientists, that the technosphere, the mass of human-created material on Earth, is over 30 trillion tons of material. And now we're dealing with the consequences of that. How do we pull back from plastic? And these are different stories that we can explore that show how we're dealing with the problem instead of just showing the problem.
Everyone's experience and capacity is different. So our hope with this kind of work that we're creating that invites people to form their own opinions, to engage with it in a subjective way, is that everyone will go and think about the whole human project differently and think about our little blip of existence in geological time.
That experiential knowledge is what leads to a shift in consciousness, and a shift in consciousness leads to real and profound change.